Hey, I'm sorry about the traffic, crazy traffic in New.
Here's a shout out to New York City taxi cab drivers. At least you know where you're going. So my Uber driver did not. So.
Oh man, but it's tough down here, Danielle. It's tough down in Wall Street. You know, this parade's going to be a zoo tomorrow too.
Insane.
Oh my God. So Danielle DiMartino Booth has this book called Fed Up. I'm holding it up. It's called Fed Up. And, we talked with you before. You're one of the few people to see the financial collapse of 2008 coming. You're going on Neil Cavuto's show later this afternoon?
I am indeed.
Give him my best. Tell Neil, say the Italian guy says hi. Because that coast-to-coast show is great that Neil does. Now, why were you able to see that collapse coming and none of the experts saw it coming in 2008, Danielle? What did you see?
Well, I think part of it had to do with the fact that the Federal Reserve was miscalculating the way that it measures inflation. So it wouldn't have seen a Mack truck headed for it at the time. But if you say that inflation is too low around anybody I know, you've got to stand back a few feet because they're liable to try and deck you because they know that the price of sending their kids to college or putting food on the table or filling up their gas tank has gone up in years. They know that.
So you've been critical of the Federal Reserve for years now, and I hear the president. I agree with the president when I say that the stock market bumps when the Fed raises its interest rates. You're telling me we need the Fed.
We do need the Fed. We need the Fed for many reasons. But we need the Fed for fewer reasons than what we've got it for now. It needs to be reined in a big way. They keep rates too low for too long, which causes the economy to go through these boom and bust cycles that are very debilitating long term. And they make countries like China focus on us and say, you know what, this is an internal weakness and it's a vulnerability. But for all of the end the Fedders out there, and I know there are quite a few, can you imagine what China does with our intellectual property? And then superimpose that on what would happen if we didn't have a guardian for our financial system and what their cyber criminals could come in and do. So having an independent and strong Federal Reserve is really critical to national security.
Wow, that's a great observation. So China's because they're like just looking for something.
Look, we know that our financial system is vulnerable. The credit card companies, banks, all the time you're hearing of these breaches. I can't imagine what would happen if there were fewer safeguards.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, there were tremendous job numbers out on Friday. We talked about this off mic. Over 220,000 jobs for the month of June alone. Come on. Does that make it harder for the Fed to cut rates now?
It gives the Fed cover to cut rates at a less aggressive pace. But right down here, right just a few streets away on Liberty Street, the New York Federal Reserve keeps a recession probability model going. Yesterday, it hit 33%. That is a 12-year high. Folks, we're headed for a recession, whether we like it or not. Fade the headlines sometimes. Look underneath the hood. The car may be running just fine, but the transmission block may be getting ready to fall out of it. So you've got to look under the hood. We've had average weekly earnings, that's known as a paycheck, decline from a 4% growth rate in January to 2.7%. We had 301,000, that's over the whole number of jobs created, of multiple job increases. That's people taking a second or third job on just to make ends meet. We've had shrinking work weeks, which means fewer bodies. That fewer hours typically precedes fewer bodies, and we've had layoffs going up for 11 straight months. So I'm sorry, but we cannot decouple from the rest of the country, from the rest of the world forever, and the rest of the world is sliding into recession, and it looks like we are as well.
But isn't there? And again, let's hope that's not the case.
We do.
And people are saying, oh, that's not going to happen, and because the
stock market's up.
But exactly. But I'm wondering if. When will this happen? First of all, let me ask. When do you think the recession will happen?
Well,
hopefully after the 2020 election.
Well,
Sorry.
We were just a few months shy. We were just a few months shy of being in recession the last time the New York Fed's model was this high, 12 years ago. And if you talk to the freight shipping companies, we are Amazon. We're an Amazon nation. We are what we buy online, and we've had shipping the rate of shipping decrease for 6 consecutive months. So the people who maintain that data say that recession could be a third or fourth quarter event of this year.
Wow. So you're saying that and I know when you go down with Neil will say that too, because he never says it, but he asks. He's been asking a lot of times, which is kind of a red flag to me that maybe there will be a recession coming.
We've been in an industrial recession for months now.
But
Our
isn't it
manufacturing sector's been slowing for months.
But the economy, it's epic, it's historic, it's like through the roof. So
It
you know
has
it's
been.
but everything that goes up has got to come down a little bit.
That's
so
right.
is it okay to do that? I mean, and I know the president's enemies are going to want to go, oh yes, recession.
It's the thing is it's not political. The tax cuts came at a time when the economy really didn't need this huge fiscal stimulus, but there they were. So they really jacked up growth and gave us this sugar high. And as you say, sometimes highs end up in hangover. So that's kind of where we are right now.
You're making far too much sense, Danielle. So I'm
I'm so sorry.
Is there a possibility that there will not be a recession?
There is a chance. I was asked this question yesterday. I get asked this question frequently, and I think that if we could have potentially bipartisan infrastructure spending bill go through Congress, I mean, what are the odds of that happening? Pelosi, none. But if there was to be
Gotcha.
a complete stalemate with the Chinese trade war, something along those lines, there might be a surge of optimism. But right now, we just had small business optimism come out, and they're saying that the uncertainty surrounding the trade war has begun to drag on small businesses, and we know they're the biggest job creators in the nation.
Yeah. Hey, Danielle DiMartino Booth, the name of the book is called The Fed. Are the tensions with Iran going to raise oil prices? Does that still work? Do we worry about that anymore?
Well, I mean, if you start to see, drones over the Strait of Hormuz and you don't see a spike over $60 in oil prices, you'd have to say that it's fairly immune given all the supply out there. We should have seen a bigger spike, which is bad for households. You don't want prices at the pump going up.
Yeah. Thanks for fighting the traffic coming down here.
Absolutely.
Where are you going, back to Fox now?
Headed uptown now.
Oh, Lord. I'm sorry about that. Did you get the car that we sent? Frank and I always like to ask our guests that. They look at us with the cars like, what car? Thank you for taking the time to come here. Give Neil my best.
I will.
And let's
I will.
hope that there is not a recession.
We can hope.
All right.
But
Thank
we can
you.
also be prepared.
Yeah, that's good. And infrastructure. Oh, my gosh. Wouldn't that be great? If the
our country's infrastructure is crumbling.
Yeah. Thank you.
That is not a mystery.
Thank you, Danielle DiMartino Booth. Thank you, Danielle. Piscopo in the morning. Debbie's out there.